Hello, good morning. Today I will be introducing the major Unisys discoveries that have been presented and that are part of the 11th International Conference that will be held this year. The objective of the conference this year is presenting the whole research done by the Unisys Research Institute and giving access to the public of the application of the applied research and objects developed by the participants of the group. It is a pleasure to present these final discoveries, these final findings that ended this year with the publishing of the individual archetype for personal use. The objective of the Unisys Research Institute was to find the roots of growth. All the rest that is around it has only one purpose: fostering growth. And growth is the maximal expression of adaptiveness. When something grows and grows structurally, it is because it is adapted to the environment. Adaptiveness in Unisys terms implies influencing the environment to produce something while being influenced by the environment and accepting this trade-off between influence and influencing in order to grow. It required dealing with complexity. Reality is intrinsically complex. Things are not complex because people see them complex. They might see them complicated, but complexity is an objective characteristic of a system. Therefore, dealing with complexity required entering the new stage in scientific research. It required creating the Unisys ontological research methodology in order to provide a solution that drives towards finding the final groundings, the foundations of some complex adaptive system in order to forecast it, influence it, and produce results. This research methodology is structurally different from the systemic research methodology. That's why the papers that deal with this research, in fact, are just descriptions of something that really happened. This research, complex system research, requires achieving results because they are only measurable aspect of a complex system. Therefore, the papers that will be presented in this conference are all cases of applications where something extremely original has been achieved. The presentation of the 100 major discoveries includes the description of the purposes. I would like to present some of the milestones that are within these discoveries. The first aspect that was discovered, not chronologically, but essentially, was the discovery of the ongenetic intelligence of nature. It demanded many, many, many years until it was found and until it was accepted as valid, because it can be found in the atom, it can be found in the DNA, it can be found in biology, it can be found in yin-yang, it can be found in all the aspects that deal with complexity. The onto-intelligence of nature underlies nature, and it is what produces that nature is what it is. A specific aspect of nature behaves as it behaves. What we needed to find is the structure of this evolution and the onto-intelligence of nature can be defined simply by three aspects: a purpose, an active principle, and an energy conservation principle. This requires defining how these three elements are integrated, and the definition of two basic relationships, which are the unique relationships that exist in nature. Meaning, there is a supplementation law and there is a complementation law. The supplementation law implies that the active principle is redundant with the purpose, but has a superior conservation principle. And the complementation law defines that the conservation principle sustains the purpose by complementing, by having what the purpose lacks, but having a common conservation principle. This is extremely abstract, and but it is basic to be sure to have a secure, a safe, a reliable knowledge of a complex system in order to know that the description of the structure of a system is true. This allowed developing the Unisys theory of evolution. This is a second milestone. The Unisys theory of evolution explains how this evolution happens, explains why the active principle is the driver of change, how change is produced, how entropy is produced, the different mutation laws, evolution laws, the different laws that regulate evolution that allow forecasting in the future. Another milestone is the discoveries that nature is organized by objects. This is a life-changing discovery, meaning it allows to go beyond subjectivism when approaching reality. You know, when humans intend to be objective, it is against nature, because humans are subjective by definition. Therefore, finding the objects that can be defined, described, measured in nature allowed emulating them in human organizations and introducing objectiveness in human behavior, in institutions, in countries, in individuals. All the research we have done refers to three application fields: countries and cultures, institutions and businesses, and individual behavior. In the Far East, it is self-evident that reality is a unified field. In the West, this is something new. We could develop, design, model the unified field of a reality in order to influence it, knowing that in fact the unified field is infinite. But when you define functional limits, you can work with it within a risk that you have left aside things that should be considered, or you included aspects that are extremely nice, extremely polite, but unnecessary to solve a problem. This drove to what we could define as the Unisys logic. The Unisys logic emulates the ontogenetic intelligence of nature, and this allowed defining a logic that allows modeling complex systems. The Unisys logic opened the door of hypothetical analysis that happened in the past, which demonstrated being fallacious. This is the case of dialectics. The Hegel and Marx dialectic are fallacious because they are a dualistic approach in a world that it has a triadic structure. Approaching with a dualistic approach a triadic structure naturally drives to a prioristic fallacies. What we found, what we developed is the Unisys double dialectical logic, and the Unisys double dialectical thinking was discovered how individuals can approach a triadic structure with a dualistic mind, because neurons are on or off. And this discovery allowed accessing and giving access to others to the Unisys findings. All these aspects drove to define, to describe a structure of the structure of complex adaptive systems, and specifically to apply it in the field of human complex adaptive systems, defining that a system is complex when it has open boundaries. This implies that it's being influenced from the environment, influenced by the environment. The elements of the system have bionivocal relationships. That's why they have no cause-effect relationships. They have loops. They are integrated in a oneness, which requires managing all the elements of a complex system using the conjunction and without using the disjunction or, what makes it complex and requires apprehending the logic of the unified field in order to manage it. And finally, complex systems require being measured by results. There is no other valid measurement in complexity than results. That's why results is the meaning of the Unisys approach. Behind, to approach this, what was this? One of the deepest findings that required more than 20 years of research was the discovery of ethical intelligence as being the driver, the basic driver of human behavior, defining the approach, defining what the individual is able to see without distorting reality, defining the true intentions of an individual when the individual approaches reality. All these aspects in the generic field allowed developing future research, which is the core of dealing with complexity. One deals with complexity in the real world in order to make things happen. And these things do not exist today. That's why forecasting the future is a must when you deal with adaptiveness. All those people who are focused on the past are very useful in the scholar field, as erudites, but when needing to make things that do not exist, you need to forecast the future. And that is what the Unisys approach fosters, and the tools, the logical tools and the logical approaches the Unisys approach provided. In the field of countries, we can simplify it that in names. We have discovered the country archetypes, which drive the essential behavior of a country, which are absolutely unconscious, but allow defining which measurements, which actions can provoke a growth, can provoke an evolution of a country. We have found the theory, the Unisys theory of social evolution, which defines the stages of the evolution, knowing that stages of evolution in countries implies decades, implies generations, and we are not talking about short-term measurements. The conceptual economy was discovered, which allows integrating the archetypes of cultures with the economic tools that are available in the world, making possible to define what is possible to be achieved without entering recipes that do not adapt to the archetype of a culture. Behind all these aspects now is the discovery of concepts. Concept is the name we have given to the structure that underlies any action that is behind any object that is behind any idea. And we use the word concept not the way philosophers use it. We define concept as an onto-intelligent that is implicit in living beings and deposited by the living beings on their deeds. Finally, the conceptual anthropology allowed the development and discovery of the conceptual anthropology allowed integrating essential behaviors that are behind the cultural invariables and defining the drivers of the scenarios in the political, economic, and social fields. It drove also to defining the culture of ideologies, but there are hundreds of aspects that have been researched. Consider we are nearby 5,000 researches that have been done since 1976, and we are just presenting the major milestones and the major discoveries that allowed building the rest of the researches. Consider that finding the nature of something allows building a secure and safe knowledge. This secure and safe knowledge, we call it a brick. Meaning, if you have a brick which is solid, you can deposit another brick and then build another brick and build another brick and then have a building of knowledge that corresponds to reality and allows influencing it. These bricks are the core of this brick thinking. Every brick is an object in itself, it's a knowledge object, a conceptual knowledge object in our case, allows building knowledge and allows having always a new field that begins to need to be discovered. The knowledge is endless. That's why when you build a brick, the brick ends and something adjacent begins. That's why the research is endless, although we have finished all the research that allows influencing cultures, that allows influencing institutions, that allows making business, and allows dealing with individuals taking advantage of what they have and not depositing on them what they should have because someone is enlightened and considers they knows what people should do. In business, we developed the concept of business as an adaptive system that forced us to develop systems that allow beginning with the complexity and going down to the end at an operational level where complexity is not perceived and the action happens as usual and people don't need to know what is behind. Only those who are interested in knowing what is behind are able to enter. In business, the operational actions do not require to know all the aspects that are included in the research. We found also the structure of institutions. That's why we defined a concept that says institutions the key for growth. Only institutional approaches allow developing structured growth. Conjunctural growth can be done by everyone at any moment who is able to take advantage of the situation. But a structured growth, which implies establishing permanent, established relationships between an organization and the environment, requires an institutional thinking. This drove to finding the institutional archetypes, which allowed us to define what is possible in different institution, depending on the country or cultural archetype it works with, it is in, and depending on the characteristics of the activity and the nature of the institution based on the true intentions when it was grounded and how it evolved. The object-driven organization allowed emulating nature in organizations, finding the simplest way to organize activities to organize work processes. And this objective organization included an objective marketing, which, because marketing, the action on the environment, is one of the most complex aspects of an institution, and objective marketing allowed introducing object, simplifying enormously the marketing action based on segmentation thinking, meaning thinking the drivers of the behaviors of the people of the market, meaning it is fully people-oriented, although it appears to be extremely objective. Client-centered management, the discovery and modeling of client-centered management that has almost 30 years, that is 30 years old, allowed finding the structure of the value-adding orientation of organizations. And it has been, and it is necessary to orient towards the market to produce results, to increase results, to add value and earn from the counterpart. Finally, robotics allows us to transform complexity into adaptive automation. Due to the evolution of IT technologies, it was possible to introduce at an operational level all these complex aspects, which are transformed into simple procedures, into simple actions to produce results. Finally, I would like to just to give you an idea about the individual aspects of these discoveries. The central individual aspect was the discovery of onto-intelligence, which is driven by ethical intelligence, as we mentioned before, includes strategic intelligence, which defines how individuals manage conflicts, and which includes the types of logical thought, which defines how individuals solve problems. Problem solving, conflict management, and the ethical intelligence as final driver of humans' behavior are the aspects that are included in onto-intelligence. The great advantage of this knowledge is knowing that the maturity of individual allows the evolution of ethical intelligence, and the evolution of ethical intelligence drives the empowerment of the rest of the intelligence humans have. And this means the more mature an individual is, the higher his level of ethical intelligence. This basic knowledge allowed defining conceptual psychology, which is a major discovery and development which deals with the drivers of human behavior at an essential level, that define the possibilities of an individual and the limits of an individual. In the application field, this was applied, basically, this individual research has been applied basically to learning processes, having found and discovered the nature of a learning process, how the learning process happens in mind, and the nature of learning context, which context drives to what possibilities of learning, and when an individual is unable to learn because he doesn't accept the learning context. You have to consider the possibility of learning depends on two aspects, on the environment and on the individual. The ontology of individual learning allows defining how the individual can develop his learning process, and the context is what influences the possibility of the individual. If both are harmonic, it works. This drove also to develop the individual archetype, which in fact has several approaches in the history of psychology, but it defines the nature of an individual depending on what is his purpose in life, what does he need to do, and how that he needs to appear. This appearance, doing, and purpose in life are what define an individual's archetype. This is a simple introduction. You will find the 100 major discoveries described in the paper or abstract that has been prepared, and you can find the information in the Unisys library where you can find these aspects. I would like to invite you all to drive the Unisys logical approach to a next step, which is the step to make things happen, to do, to influence, and to generate results. And consider, please, and this is the ending, that the results we produce need to be measurable, and they are fully focused on growth. And growth, when we apply it to countries, is implicit in the social revolution. When we apply it to individuals, is implicit in the use of the talents of individuals to produce results. And when it applies to businesses, it implies producing market expansions, producing profit expansions, and producing added value and earning value for all. Thank you. This is the final presentation as an input for this year, the 11th International Conference. Thank you very much.